Yes, yes.
Let's start. Chris, you're a how do you say it?
Well, some people call some people call us speleologists, some people call us cavers, some people call us loco.
Some people will call you crazy.
Yes.
Then when you're doing this, you are expecting to discover something. That's what you are trying to do, to discover something.
Yes.
What was your first impression when you discovered this cave with these things about the Holocaust?
You know, one of the reasons I go caving and why people go to caves is you get an adrenaline rush when you're the first at seeing something that nobody else has seen. So when I go in there and I see these old artifacts, I see old bits of clothing, I see old bottles and spoons and forks. No one else told me that was in there. No one else had any information. So I got the adrenaline is rushing. Who put this here? What's the story? And that's why people go caving. I tell them, when I'm asked the question, why do people explore caves? I tell them that as I'm speaking to you, 12 people have walked on the surface of the moon. 2,400 plus have been on the top of Mount Everest. About 6 have been to the deepest oceanic trenches in the world. But when you explore a cave, there's still the opportunity of being the first at seeing something no one else has seen. You could go in a cave that's been known for 100 years and be the first one to make a left-hand turn instead of a right-hand turn. You could be the first one that instead of climbing over that rock, you lift the rock out of the way and find a new life form. And what cavers do is rather unique. We look for the darkness beyond the void. If we move a rock out of the way and look in and see another rock, the mystery's over. But if we see darkness, the mystery's only begun.
What was your impression when you found this about the Holocaust? Because it's not just to discover it. You discover a new thing about this Holocaust thing.
Yeah.
And what was the investigation?
It took 10 years to confirm it was not a rumor, it was a true story. And then I thought to myself, I'm a caver. I know the difficulty of living in a cave for a week, 2 weeks. These were people who lived in a cave for over 500 days. And they were not cavers when they went in. They were amateurs. And I started to think, this is a story about the human spirit. And it made me proud to be a human being. Yes, it's important that they're Jewish, but it's almost as important that they were human beings, and it shows the human spirit. And what it showed is even ordinary individuals faced with extraordinary obstacles become extraordinary individuals in overcoming it. We all have it in us. And I became proud to be part of the human race.
It's interesting because everybody like a Jewish thing, and you are not Jewish.
No.
And you see the Holocaust like different.
It's a genocide.
Did your life this discovery?
Yes, it did. It did.
Impression about Holocaust?
When I was growing up and I was young, I heard the stories about the evils of American slavery. I heard the stories about the atrocities committed against Native Americans. And I heard about the number 6 million, the estimated number of Jews to have perished in the gas chambers and the death camps. But as a young boy, whether that number was 5 million, 6 million, or 7 million, to me it was simply a large number. I hate to quote anybody like Joseph Stalin, the leader of the Soviets, but he once said, the loss of an individual is a personal tragedy. Thank goodness the loss of millions is nothing but a mere statistic. Well, after having interviewed the people that I wrote about in my book numerous times and looked into their eyes, knowing I could never say I understand, I understood something new, and that is the Holocaust was never an individual story of how 6 million people perished. 6 million individual stories of fathers, mothers, lovers, grandparents, as are all such genocides. And that number took on a completely new meaning in my life. and to this day is still somewhat overwhelming to me.
You say something interesting, that it's not the story of 6 million people. There are 6, you can say it.
Now, I'm still learning about the Jewish culture, and I understand there's a debate, and I believe people like Elie wiezel believe that you should not individualize the experience. But I can tell you, as a non-Jew, and knowing the people that I wrote about in the book, and individualizing those experiences and multiplying it by 6 million, that's what did it for me.
There are 6 million of stories.
Yes.
Holocaust, tragic stories.
That's what did it for me.
You have been also in justice before being a cave.
Yes.
Just to know, what do you think about the justice in the Holocaust and after Holocaust with all these people that perpetrate the Holocaust, and after being with these families and having them?
You know, in some regards, you wonder if there can ever be justice, because how can you take away the pain and suffering that the people have felt? And it's not just them, it's the children. When they bring them up, they carry the scars, and the children's children. So you wonder if you can ever truly cure. Now, I know we hear that you can forgive, but you can never forget. Well, maybe there's some truth in that, because if you forget, you might not recognize the warning signs in the future of what's going to happen. Now, I do know that within the last 2 years, Ukrainian Jews now can also seek reparations. That was not always the case, but I think a year and a half ago. So that's a step towards some remedy, to, you know, monetary remedy. But again, money is not everything.
And tell me, just to finish, studying caves, it means that people who wrote on the caves, we remember caves, we have cavemen that put their paintings there, and then you find a family that wrote on the.
That's a very good
on the paint. Why we have to write on the wall?
That was an extremely good question. When I came back from Ukraine in 2003 on a National Geographic sponsored expedition, the co-author of our book, Peter Lane Taylor, and I brought back 2,000 photographs, and we put together a slideshow for the Sturmer family in Montreal. And we went up there, and there were 3 generations of Sturmers in the apartment, and we were showing the slides. And there was a lot of what we say kibitzing, you know, saying, look, the millstone's still there, look, there's the plate I used, there's the spoon. Everybody was talking. The very last slide was a picture of the names on the ceiling. And we put that on, and all of a sudden, everybody in the room got quiet. Now, as non-Jews, the co-author, Peter Taylor, and I looked at each other, and we thought, oh my goodness, we accidentally did something to offend all the Jews in the room. And we looked, and there wasn't a dry eye in the audience, and we finally realized this was the first physical evidence the children and grandchildren saw that the stories that were being told their whole lives took place. Subsequently, one of the grandchildren said, why would they write their names in Polish? They spoke Yiddish in the cave.
All right. They spoke Yiddish?
Yes. Well, I said, good question. I looked at memoirs, and in her memoirs she wrote, if they should survive, she did not know if Hebrew or Judaism would exist. She also wrote, whoever would tell the story of the caves would probably tell it in German or Russian. Then she wrote the most important 2 things in their lives, that they survived, but if they didn't survive, their story survived. If they wrote their names in Yiddish, and if someone wrote the history of the cave in German or Russian, they would not have translated their names. Wow. They planned for their own demise.
Very nice. That was impressive. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay.